Me and you versus the world, Mr. Monkey Mug. Me and you versus the world. Good lyric idea. Let's do this. Is anybody burnt out from building a bus? Oh yes, I am. It's so incredibly hard. I wish I would have traveled from the past. I told myself it'd be so hard. I should know that. Oh yes, I've done this twice before. I wish that building a bus was more like building a song. I'd be half as sweaty and twice as far along. I wish that building a bus was more like building a song. I'd be half as sweaty and twice as far along. I spent 5 minutes writing this song. I spent 5 days getting nothing done on the bus. Even though I'm trying, we're gonna get through it. We're gonna get through it. We'll get through this, guys. Episode 10, here we go. Right across this country into the starlight. 12,000 miles, turn back, do it again. No destination, it's just a journey. You were my lover and friend.
Are you ready to build a bus? Are you ready to get up? It's time to work on the bus. No? Too early for you? Episode 10 is all about doors, drawers, and the finishing touches for our booth.
Oh my.
With the table leg. The first project that we started this week was drawers. If you watched a few videos ago, we finished the lower kitchen cabinets, and last week's video, we finished our booth couch bed area. All of these areas are getting drawers installed into them. We have 9 drawers total in this bus, so it was about time we got started on that.
Let's begin the agony of drawer slides. So much fun, so much fun.
The first drawer that we made was for our fridge. We cut all the pieces and assembled it using just really simple pocket holes. They're strong, they're easy to do, and it's just a tray that the fridge will slide in and out on. So once the box was assembled, we used heavy-duty drawer slides to install it into the cabinet. Even though we used heavy-duty drawer slides, we still want to prevent any sagging. This is a really heavy object, especially once it's filled with all your food and you're driving down the road, rattling. You want it to stay in place when it's fully extended. We have this same setup in our bus, and we noticed just a little bit of sagging at the full extension.
Right.
So we decided to put little wheels on the outside of the drawer so that at its full extension, it is still supported, but it will slide in and out really smooth.
Take a lot of stress off of it.
So we added the little wheels to the bottom of the drawer, but that presented another problem because our kitchen cabinet is screwed together with 3/4 inch ply. Now, our final flooring will be a 1/4 inch thick.
Right.
That left a 1/2 inch that those wheels had to bump up and over to fully slide back into the cabinet, which the wheels are so small, they would not do that. So my solution was to cut out 2 little channels where the wheels sit and add 1/4 inch pieces of plastic. You could add wood, but I didn't want any chance that it would break down over time, so I just used little pieces of plastic, cut it to the size, put it in the little channels, and once we installed it, I put a piece of 1/4 inch in front of the drawer to mock up the flooring, and it slid out back and forth just perfectly.
Excellent.
It's fully supported at full extension, fully supported when in the cabinet, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, it should be good for the long haul. I feel pretty confident about it. We use a chest freezer as our refrigerator and use an external thermometer that controls the temperature. The probe goes into the freezer, and then you plug the freezer into that outlet and tell the temperature you want, and it will kick the compressor on when it needs to. But Without getting too deep into it, there's a couple quick reasons we did this. One, the market for 12-volt fridge is kind of like pretty limited, both in the size selection and the dimensions and just how much is out there. And the prices are so high, I think maybe because there isn't competition in that market very much. Maybe I'm wrong, I'm not sure. But another reason is it's super well insulated and it's top loading. So when you open it up, you don't lose all your cold air. When a traditional fridge, if you open it, all your cold air sort of falls out and then the compressor's got to kick back on. This thing is so well insulated, it probably kicks on a few times a day. So its total watt draw is very low. The only drawback I would say is your inverter has to be on 24 hours a day. So make sure you're getting a very efficient inverter with the lowest watt draw you can find, because it's going to have to be on all the time. But overall, I think it's way less power than some of our other options.
Then we moved on to the bulk of the storage drawers in this bus. This is the ones to the right of the stove and right next to the booth, what will eventually be underneath our heater. Now, I had a goal for myself with this build. I've been interested in woodworking ever since we got into these builds, and I really wanted to try out a half-blind dovetail joint. Wood joinery is really fun, I think, and I wanted to level up with this build, and I wanted to do something really special, something that would be really strong, and learn something new myself. So the half-blind dovetail joint is a common woodworking joint that you would use for drawers because the joint can't be seen on the sides. When you pull out the drawer, it's just a nice smooth face, but you can see the dovetails on the front, which will eventually be covered. So essentially they're invisible once the whole thing is finished.
So basically you can mark another thing off your childhood dream list. Yes. Grow up, build half-blind dovetail joint drawers in an old shuttle bus for someone to live in.
Is this a weird goal?
That's definitely was on there when you were like 6 or 7, right?
Absolutely.
That's specific.
Yes.
Great.
It turned out that my dad had a jig for these dovetail joints, which was really good luck because I was looking at making a jig for my table saw, but with the one that he had, I could just use my router and it was a lot simpler. I am not doing these dovetail joints by hand.
No.
Let me make that clear. I would love to, but time is a constraint. Yeah. So I used the jig. It was really simple. First thing to do was make all the cuts. Love to do that. Get them all out of the way. Then I set up the boards in the shape that the drawer will be, laid them all out and numbered each corner 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, so you know which ends go together because it gets really confusing when all the pieces are mixed up. Then you feed them into the jig with one going with one, and you make sure everything is lined up. That's when you use the dovetail bit on the router, and you just follow the little template back and forth and make sure you get really clean, nice cuts on the plywood. You do this for all 4 sides of the box, putting them into the jig, routing out the edges until all 4 are finished. Then I use a little sandpaper to clean up the edges so that the joints go in clean. I used my table saw to make a groove into each piece so that I could do a dado style joint for the bottom of the drawer. This means that the bottom of the drawer will slide into a channel on each edge of the box. There's no screws in these drawers whatsoever, so it's self-supporting. The bottom is supported by all of the sides. Then it was time to brush glue into all of the edge seams and push it together. Make sure that everything fits, tap it together with a little mallet, and everything slid into place perfectly. Now this was not my first drawer. This was not my first attempt. There was 3 or 4 drawers that I did first to dial everything in that were not good and were not pretty. But once I had everything dialed in, I could just bust out all of these drawers and they went really smoothly. They tapped into place. Once everything was glued and pushed together, I clamped all the joints and let it dry. You can just tell by picking up these drawers now that they're fully constructed how solid they are. Mm-hmm. You can tell that everything is holding itself together and it's just really structurally sound. If you're at all interested in woodworking, this is a fairly easy thing to learn, especially if you're going to use a jig. Yeah. And I think one day I'd like to make them by hand.
Sure, just not today.
Not today.
Snow cone. It's a new TikTok trend on the Ding Dong. You throw your soda water in the freezer late at night, cool it off to drink it, and then forget about it and wake up to a popping sound at like 7 a.m. And it can explodes. And then you have a snow cone. And try not to cut yourself on the can.
Is it tasty?
It actually is pretty tasty. Now that the drawers are all made, next was to install the drawer slides. Now this part can be not so much fun.
It was not fun in our first bus, and
Right.
I was on a mission to learn more about drawer slides so it would be a less painful process this time. In the really tight spaces, I was able to deconstruct the cabinets, but mostly the groundbreaking difference this time was to use woodblock spacers. And this made a world of difference.
Yeah.
What I mean by this is I cut 2 pieces of wood that were the exact height either from the floor up or from one spacer to the next that each drawer slide would sit at. And then you could just put the wood blocks against the wall or the cabinet, and you don't need 2 people, you don't need 8 hands like you would need for one person to install a drawer slide.
Yeah.
You just need these spacers. They hold up the slide so you can screw it in, and it's perfectly level. So if you work from the top down, you can do spacers from the floor up. But if you work from the bottom up, you can do spacers between each drawer slide. Just rest them on the next drawer slide up. And it was really simple. It was really easy. It was nice to be able to just put the drawer slide in there and not have it falling all over the place.
Yeah.
So this was actually an easier install than I anticipated. Another thing that I learned was that on drawer slides, there's these little tabs that have a little kind of channel around it, around 3 sides of it. And that's so that you can screw into the hole in the middle of this tab, and then the drawer slide will kind of space itself out by moving that tab.
Oh.
So if you have a little bit too much room with your drawer slides, don't screw into every hole and don't screw into the holes that just mount it right to the wall. Screw into these little tabs, and then it gives the drawer slide room to move around. So 2 big tips
There you go.
that I learned this time. One of the biggest things you can do to make your life easier with these cabinets and drawers and slides is to make sure that your cabinets and drawers are square. If you're starting with a subpar material, it's going to be so hard to line everything up. The biggest thing you can do is just make sure that your drawers are square and make sure that your cabinets are square.
Yeah, that's one of the big things with using 3/4 inch wood, which I believe you used. Then we tested out each drawer slide by putting the drawers in, sliding them in and out, and testing the soft close, and they all were pretty smooth. Definitely better than our first attempt. Didn't take as much alteration at the end, and you get to the end and the little soft close just grabs it in.
It is very satisfying.
Yeah.
We went ahead and made a doggy drawer for the bottom of the booth cabinet. Now, if whoever buys this bus doesn't have a cat or a dog or a pet that they need these water dishes for, we'll just replace it with a drawer. But for us, having Mateo, the food and water drawer for him has been the best addition to the bus ever.
Yeah.
Because his food and water dish before were just kind of rolling around the bus. You'd forget to empty it out. Water would be all throughout the vehicle when you drive. So having these stationary that you can just slide the drawer in and out when it's time for food or they need water, so nice. So we went ahead and installed that on the bottom of the cabinet. It's so cute.
Yeah, it is nice with him knowing it's there. If it's open a little bit, he can paw it open to like get a drink of water. It's hilarious.
He can open it himself. So I hope whatever future dog or cat that moves into this bus will love this drawer just as much as Mateo loves his. The last part of the drawers this week was to make the canned storage slide.
This is the hard one.
Pantry slide out.
Yeah.
This was an absolute nightmare in our bus. I have no problem saying that. I
Yeah.
was so frustrated. This compartment is 5 inches wide.
Yep.
Really small. And we had already secured our cabinets down when we did this in our bus. I couldn't deconstruct it, so I was in there with a tiny
Get your hand tools.
screwdriver in this 5-inch space, like screwing.
And it's deep too, and it's just so awkward.
I didn't make spacers, so the drawer slides were all wonky. It was a nightmare. So I was determined to do better this time. We did it earlier on in the process, so the cabinet could be deconstructed. I just popped the end off of it. And after making the actual pantry itself with all the different dividers, I did the actual drawer slide installation outside of the bus.
Yes.
Which made a world of difference, let me tell you.
Right.
Then we took it in the bus and installed it. It took a minute to get it lined up, but once it clicked in place, it slides back and forth. It is beautiful. The canned storage in our bus is so important to us. This kind of storage was a real issue in our first van, so we prioritized it in this, and our slide out pantry has become really popular with everyone that's seen our bus.
It's amazing because if you do use a lot of canned goods, it just makes it so much easier. Now you can do like a row of black beans, garbanzo beans, canned tomatoes, coconut milk, that kind of stuff, and just organize it, and you just pull it out, and it's like, there's the one I need, and you don't have to pull 30 other cans out. So it's definitely super huge upgrade.
Once all the drawers were installed, we went ahead and faced the kitchen cabinets. You can see in some of the videos that the drawer slides protrude from the face of the cabinet, and that's because we face with 1x3s. So once we went through and did that, it really started to look like the finishing touches were bringing it all together. Now all the drawer slides are perfectly flush with the front, and it's starting to take on its final form. The final finishing touch for these drawers was to add the face onto them. We cover them with solid wood, and I leave a little bit of a gap in between each drawer face so that they can slide in and out without bumping the next one. But I don't leave a lot of gap because we kind of like that tight-faced look to the cabinets. Nice. The next project this week was doors. Now we are going to have a bunch of different styles of doors for the cabinetry in this bus, but the first project was the upper cabinet doors. When we were doing our bus, I was looking for a really simple, really easy type of wood joinery to make these upper cabinet doors. They don't have a lot of torque on them, they're not holding in a lot of force, they just kind of sit there on the hinges, so you don't need anything too intense. I came up with a half lap joint. I think I learned this through a YouTube video. If I can find it, I'll link it below. This is a joint that you can do on your table saw. It's so easy. You cut each rail and stile to the exact full length of the door and full height. You don't have to do any math with subtracting differences for the type of joint that you're doing. So they're just really easy. You run them through the table saw, add some glue on there, distribute it throughout the whole joint, and press them together. Once I had all of them done and glued, I put them together underneath some weight. I actually added the welder on top of one of them and our cooler and our router table. And they sat under there for a few hours. Once the glue has dried, they're really solid. Ours have been great for the whole time that we've been in the bus. We've had no problems with them. So the middle section of these drawers is going to be cane. So for the time being, until we paint them, I left them open. But it took only an hour or two to make all these doors. They're so easy to do.
Your door making machine.
The cool thing about these doors is that with the hinges that we chose, they hold themselves open because they have cane in the middle and they're not made with a lot of bulky wood. They're really light. So the hinges that we got are nothing special. They're just the regular hinges from Home Depot. And once you install them and you open it, you don't need a strut, you don't need an arm or anything. They just stay there, which is kind of nice.
It's really nice that the doors are light enough and these hinges just hold them open. It's awesome.
So get the cheaper, non-fancy, soft closing hinges, and if you do this style of door, they should hold themselves open. The last part of these doors are the shaker style doors. These really intimidated me with our bus build. I don't know, it's just a lot of joints and a lot of matching things up, but they're actually not that hard. There's a lot of tutorials out there that will tell you how to do it on a table saw. So I just took the rails, stiles, I did tongue and groove joints where each 1x3 meets, and then a dado joint for the middle panel. Once you understand what's going on, they're not that difficult to make. It just takes a little bit of planning. Now, I like to use a product called Spaceballs in my shaker cabinet doors. These are little rubber balls that you put into the dado joint of your middle panel. You put them into the groove before you insert your panel. So you make the panel just a little bit smaller to accommodate for the little rubber balls. And then if your panel expands, it just compresses the space ball and it doesn't bust apart your door.
Yeah, and this is great because while you're using the Spaceballs to make the cabinets, I can sit back and watch a 1980s movie featuring John Candy, Spaceballs. So this is going to check the age of our audience right here, see how many people get that reference.
Once all the shaker doors were finished, glued together, pressed, and dried, it was time to install them. And I felt this way about the shaker doors in our bus. Once you install these, the style of the kitchen starts to come out.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it looks like a kitchen already, but I think it kind of has that like final element to it.
Yeah, it just gives it a face and a finish and it has character.
Yeah, there's no open compartments on the cabinet anymore. We installed all these doors and drawers, all the hinges, just to make sure everything fits, and so we have the hinges already installed, but they are getting removed from the bus when we paint everything, because we will have to paint all the cabinets and doors and drawers. This was just an initial installation to make sure that everything is good to go.
For the next project, you had to reach deep back in that bag of tools and tricks, pull out Kevin, the welder, and it was time to design and weld the table leg. This is something that your dad designed for our bus, and basically we're pretty much recreating it in this bus because it's very similar, right?
Yes, in this bus, the table leg also had to go over the wheel well, so we essentially just recreated the table leg that he designed for our bus. This table leg is essentially just in the shape of a question mark. It comes up from the floor, goes over the wheel well, up and over, and then the table sits on top of it. This is so you have room to put your legs, but it can still mount into the floor on the other side of the wheel well. We cut all the pieces, welded it together. It got a coat of black paint. Then we installed the angles onto the table, which is what the fasteners go through to actually keep the table onto the leg.
So we took the crazy hinges that kind of look like a bear trap that's going to chop your fingers off.
They're scary.
And we installed them onto the table and the table leaf. So now when you pop the table up, those hinges switch position and lock in and hold the leaf up, and bam, there you go.
These are the hinges we mentioned in last week's video. We discovered them during our bus build last year, and they're really cool that you don't need an extra leg for that leaf or some other supporting piece of hardware. The hinges do the work for you, and they're really cool. Now that the table is done, the leg is done, you can pop the table leaf up. How's it feeling in the bus?
It's feeling good.
We are kind of rounding out the finishing pieces of the interior. And next week we have the installation of some other big systems in the bus now that the interior is kind of winding down. So as always, I mean, we have big plans for next week.
So we are bracing ourselves for a complicated week or two coming up with kind of the systems of the bus, the utilities, the power, and the propane and all that. It's going to get tricky, but we're going to take our time and get through it and do it right, and it'll be safe, and it's going to work awesome. Deep breath. We can do this.
While I have been doing all of this woodworking, Drew has been designing the power system for the bus. We are this close to being ready to go, so we're really excited to show you all of that in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I feel like that might be a couple separate videos.
It's a lot.
That is it for episode 10 I could sit here and ramble a long time, make a long video, but I wouldn't be able to get back to work.
Yeah, we have so much to do.
Right, like who's gonna write all these dumb songs about the bus? Me. So I gotta get going, I got things to do.
Do all those things you do on the internet, and we will see you next time.
Later.